Okay, here we are with the Nutcracker floor cloth. And what I have here is I have a piece of, normally I would use a Frederick's canvas. They come 2x3. And with this one, I'm using a fabric called Rocklon multi-purpose fabric. Anyway, but I used a big T-square and some straight edges and a round Olfa cutter to cut it into a nice square 2x3 section. I'm not going to hem it because it's very, very heavy. It doesn't fray, it's very durable. You don't have to hem it. If it's going to be in a high traffic zone, you would hem it, so you would cut it larger and then you would hem it smaller to fit the artwork. I'm going to take my black paint and I'm going to skip the palette step and just squirt that in. Be careful, it does spit when you're spitting out paint like this. Spit some paint out. With canvas, you always want to roll or use a really stiff paintbrush because it will make your paintbrush act very poorly. So you just want to go ahead and roll. Pick off any scummy things as you find them from the bottle of paint. And do you know that those scummy things happen because there's air in the bottle and it causes some of the particles to dry. So you want to keep your bottles closed so it doesn't get air and cause that oxidation process. Anyway, so I'm going to get out more black paint and I'm going to make this all black, probably 2 coats. Okay, we are on part 2 of the background of this, and you can see I've gotten really, really far before I changed my mind. I want this blue instead of black, and I'll tell you why, because I think it's interesting. As I get my pattern placed, I made my pattern, got him all lined up and everything like that, and he's so stiff. The line of him is such a stiff thing because he's a doll, right? He's just a toy. Not just a toy, I don't want to hurt his feelings. But, so what's going to happen is if I put this stark, stiff Nutcracker on this stark, stiff black background, then I think what's going to happen is while it will be good and contrasty, I think it's not going to be as interesting. So what I want to do is create a background that has movement so that it will contrast with my stiff Nutcrackers, and that will be more beautiful. So that's what we're going to do. Now I've got this already black, and I think we'll leave that because black coats well, but I would do just 1 coat of black. Now I'm going to put out Prussian blue, and we're going to do 1 whole entire coat of Prussian blue. And because it's on the black, it's going to suck into that a little bit, but I just want the indication of some blue back there. And then we're going to make a kind of dreamy sky thing go on. So first you make it Prussian blue, let it dry, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, so even though this is a piece of canvas, sometimes when you roll, you get just a little bit too, you get some lumps. And so just feel free to sand as you need to. Just notice I'm not really rubbing on it too hard. I'm just knocking back the edges. It's just a little bit too bumpy for me. It's got just a little bit of a rough little scratchy edge to it. I'm going to use up my white palette paper since, oh my goodness, what happened to my focus? Use up the white palette paper since I love, love, love the gray these days. And we need to re-wet with Prussian blue. Now in this case, I'm almost out of this color. I could wet my roller because I really don't need too much of a base on there, and that would make it go a little bit further. And we're going to keep the Prussian blue, the dark, to the outside, and we're going to do weird stuff to the inside. So I'm going to roll to moisten, dip into some water. You don't want it sopping wet because you'll make a big giant mess everywhere. So we'll get it close to the edges so that we have something wet to blend into. Alright, so we re-wet with our blue, with our whatever color blue this is. What is this? Prussian blue. Just as I was ready to say that before, the phone rang right in the middle of all this, so we'll hope that the phone can be quiet for a second, or that I remember to take the phone out of here. Okay, so then the deal is we're going to do some roller slip slapping. So we want some movement in the middle, in this kind of area right here, with, and we're going to pick up Sapphire blue. And we're going to pick up, I'm going to pick up Sapphire DA018. And we're 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 going to pi it's quite a bit brighter, so what we're going to do is we're going to roll onto that same spot and not on the whole roller. Okay, and so now what we'll do is we'll just kind of mush it from X to X, side to side. Okay, and notice that I'm getting like little round patterns here and there, and that is because when you roll into a color it's irregular, but just keep pushing and blending. Now this next, I just put more paint out. I need to go all the way over here, keeping the dark edge to my darker edge. I can always put more dark on, so I'm not going to worry too much. But if I re-put paint on this roller right now, it's already diluted and it's already mixed with that dark color. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have a much brighter next coat. So now I had to finish this whole thing first, so make sure that you kind of allow for that. Now I'm not going to load as much, and see, that's what's happening there. Notice that right there on top there's not paint, so I'll move my roller and aim it so that it'll get some paint on there. So then I will polka dots. And now we'll make it just a little bit brighter towards the middle. Switching sides as we get over to the other side. Gotta stand up to do this kind of stuff. It's just almost impossible to do it sitting down. Now I'm going to load more. So it gets brighter and brighter towards the center area. Okay, then I think we probably could do a little bit more, but I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to even out my colors just a little bit out here. I won't push as hard to do that. Just a big area down there that doesn't have any color, the lighter color. Ooh, that's like a base coat. Okay. I'm a bit happier with that. If you get a glare, just change the angle of your head as you're looking at it so that you can get around that glare. Okay. Now we allow this to dry, and then we'll play some more. Okay, I have my words traced. I have my men traced. I haven't got everything perfected yet with my pattern. But I wanted to share what I'm going to do. I am going to trace the entire outline of my Nutcracker and my words that I have already laid out on the pattern. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pattern off, and I'm going to put snowflakes and different things like that within here, but I need the men blocked on there before I can see. The snowflakes are going to be a random thing because you're going to use a stencil. So you're going to need to base what your stencil is in your specific thing, because there's a million kinds of snowflake stencils. So that's what I'm going to do. First is just get everybody blocked on there so I can see where they're going to sit, and then we'll loosely put the snowflakes in to fill in. Okay, I've got them on there and lined up, moved a few things around. Now I'm going to use the Sapphire Blue. I think it's going to come off very, very, very strong. So I'm going to use just a touch of our Prussian blue in that to tone it back just a little bit. I don't want these letters to be, taking over everything. And you'll just use a nice fully loaded round brush in good condition. Okay, get down here so you can see some of the words. And then you'll start at the top of the letter, and then if it's too strong you can stop. And then you'll press as you're doing the bold part. Get a little bit more paint here as you're doing the bold part. And then when you're on just the lining, skinny part of the letters, then you just go up on the tip of your liner. Okay. And do we think that that's bold enough? Let's take a look. Yeah, I think it shows without showing too much. We can go through and highlight these a little bit later if we feel like we haven't got it quite right. Okay. Reinforce that. I didn't think that was strong enough. Okay, I'm liking that. And so you'll just go through with all of these letters. Fold on one side. Actually, could probably use a wider round. But I'm finding if I press, I'm doing okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn this off and continue to do the rest of them. Okay, so as I have all my words on, I'm going to get out my stencil book. This is something I thought I'd share. I've got it labeled on the side. It says stencils. And then what I have is a mess because I've munched it apparently. But I put clear sheets and I put all my stencils in the clear sheets so that I can see what they look like and so that I can, you know, just kind of go stencil shopping without, you know, having them laying around and stuff like that. So I have a bunch of different snowflake stencils. You can get them at the craft stores. And we'll just look for them all. Kind of pull out a variety. Here's another one. I should have them all in sections. And the ones that are too long, what I've done is I've either folded them or I've looped them over and put them into 2 pages. And that seems to work out okay. My lettering guide's getting trashed here. I have these on a shelf that they don't quite fit on. I think I'll put them back sideways. Alright, so then what we're going to do is we're going to take a stencil brush. A dome stencil brush is good. And we're going to take our same color. This is where we're going to get our squinty eyes going. We're going to look at our snowflake stencils and see what we got. I don't think I want to do too many really big ones. So I think, and I don't think I want blocky ones like that, because I think that will detract. I think we need to do something a little bit more delicate. And so what I'll do is put a little bit of the dark blue John palette on the screen, and then pick up a little bit of this brighter blue. And you really want this soft, so make sure you don't have a big wad of paint on there. Let's see where we're at. Alright, and then we don't worry about going on to the soldiers because they're not painted yet. Yeah, see how that looks just nice and pretty and faint. Now we'll do some that are brighter and some that are less, and then we'll alternate sizes, alternate brightness. So we'll just start layering these. If there's anything that we hate, all we simply do is go take our background kind of color mixed up just a little bit and redo it. Okay, so we get some just like falling little snowflakes. You can also do a thing when I get some paint out. Ooh, don't set your stencil down on your piece because it'll make marks. Okay, I got out some Salem blue, which is what they say the highlight color is. I'm a little bit doubtful, but we're going to try it. I'm going to layer with the dirty brush with a little bit of a mix of Salem blue. And let's see what that looks like. Ah, look at how nice and bright that pops out. So we can do these really muted background ones, and then we can do a couple of brighter ones to the tops. And so then I would constantly be switching, wiping off my paintbrush back and forth. You could get 2 or 3 different colored paintbrushes going, and make muted flakes and brighter flakes. Okay, and so then we'll just keep going. I am going to get out a second paintbrush The reason for that is I'm not liking the idea of not being able to control the lightness of it or the darkness of it. So this will be my dark, and then, well, this will be my light, and the other one will be the light one. Okay, and so now we'll go over here with some tone on tone. So just a little bit of a dark in that. Oh, this one was supposed to be my light one. Oh well. Have them sneaking behind the guys. Don't have them all be, you know, in the middle and on front kind of thing. Okay, and we'll go darker now. What I was going to say earlier is you can take just a little bit of the lighter in your brush and you can highlight just the centers of some of these, so they don't have to be just plain snowflakes. Bigger ones. There's one or two big ones on this that I think we might be able to use, especially like if we pull you back. Oops, wrong direction. I'm running out of hand here. Up here I didn't put any words, so over in this area I would go with something that was just a little bit bigger to take the place of a word. That gives it a little weight up there. Okay, and so we just continue to keep on keeping on. Nice idea is to go ahead and put in your big rocks before you start putting in your bright ones. You know, so put in the big snowflakes that are darker here and there, and then you can layer them underneath the other. You can layer the lighter ones on top, and maybe busier towards the middle. And then we're going to do another little technique that I have. Oh, we didn't even use one of these. Sometimes you can scumble on your snowflake stencil. That makes it a little bit dreamier. The further out of the center of interest, the darker you want to get. And that'll be easier because you'll have less of that bright background color that we did. So that's kind of a natural type thing. This is going to be really tough to show you all the ins and outs. I think you're going to have to believe me here. Let me get a few bigger dark ones, and then we'll go area by area with the lighter ones, okay? Okay, on this little Merry Christmas word that I have up here, let's telephoto in. I'm gonna lose ya. This is the hard thing. I'm gonna have to clear off my whole table to do this. Okay, I have to move my project away. I'm gonna put a couple of snowflakes right around the word just to kind of showcase it. Maybe I would pick up my lighter brush. Mix some of those two colors together. It's kind of center of interesty, so we want to pop in some brights. You want to highlight the things that you've got going on, so you can even layer two similar stencils near something. And I think we are going to go through, I'll just show you that right now. And it's actually more something that you should do later, so okay, we'll just skip that. Okay, so we continue to layer. The rubbing technique that I was talking about is working really good for dreamy things right around the corners. I'll do one right here. It just, I had a million tons of paint in my brush at that point, which is probably an okay thing. Let's go out wide. So when you are, say up here, you want to maybe get a little dreamier. Very scant paint and then just mush it and rub it instead, and it comes off very, 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 very soft. Okay, so I'm looking for, squint your eyes and look for places to put more snowflakes or bits of snowflakes. Change the snowflakes, don't use the same ones over and over again. I am using a couple of these bigger ones, just because they can be, you know, so gargantuan over there, and they can be really soft in these dark background areas. Okay. Right, now we'll switch to a few small ones up over here. And then we'll switch to the light brush. And different size ones. As we get into the center of interest, we're going to maybe get smaller and smaller and brighter. So they're falling down. Alright, so that's about where I'm at right now. And what I want to do next is I want to take my brush and I want to dry off all the paint. This is off the lighter one. I'm losing hairs out of this brush. Every now and again you get a bad dome stencil brush. They're an amazing brush, so I refuse not to use them, but ooh, that was way too bright. So I've got a lot of paint in here because I was doing that, the stenciling. You want to just rub kind of like a little bit of dust through to connect your different stencils with each other, your different snowflakes. And that'll dream it up just a little bit more. Make things kind of connect a little bit. Very soft if you've got a lot of paint in your brush. I want it brighter back there. I don't want it too dark. Okay, and then before I wash that out, I'm going to get out my Raphael liner, and I'm going to go back to these words, which are now almost nondescript. You almost can't tell that they're there. I'm going to get a mix of the Sapphire Blue and the Salem Blue, and then I'm going to go and highlight them if I can find my glasses. I put them down. At least they're not on my head this time. Okay, so we'll highlight to bring those up just a little bit. Especially the bigger letters. Not everywhere the same. Okay. Okay, so we'll just highlight whatever needs to be highlighted. The bigger words are the ones I'm thinking of. And they don't have to exactly match. We can have a little bit of a layered type look. Okay. Those will show up just a little bit more, maybe be a little bit more majestic. And then, now I don't think it would be a good idea to just skip this step and skip right to, say, highlighting these letters and just doing them lighter, because I do think that it needs to be judged based on your hand and your weight of your colors and what you like. So I think doing them lighter once and then doing them a little bit bolder is a better idea. And then they don't all have to be highlighted as well, so some can be more bold and others can be a little bit more backgroundy and supportive. We have supportive lettering going on. Okay, and I think seems like maybe my Merry Christmas needs to be bit small for it. I like that it says Merry Christmas. And a lot of times it's just having that little bit of something up in this corner that's brighter. I could use a snowflake or whatever I wanted to. Okay, I'm liking the balance of that. Good, I'm liking it. Alright, so as you can see, I'm starting with my faces. I finally decided on a color. And I have a little tip for you here. Number one, sometimes when you trace, it's beneficial to trace as light as you can. When I trace my four men on, I trace them on very light, and now I can't see my pattern through my tracing paper because I traced so light. So I've got my details to put on there, and I want to make sure I change their arms a little bit and stuff. But I started with what I know, and that is that the faces are the same. Now what will happen is when I get my tracing paper, all this stuff, you need a space in order to do this project. Just make sure that you clear yourself enough space or you'll be very frustrated. Anyway, now when I put my pattern on there, you can see that I can put my pattern on because my faces are perfectly base coated. And now I can put all my other details on and change the arms and things like that. So if you ever get to a point where you've forgotten something but you can't see your lines, don't fret about it. Go ahead and just base coat something on there that will help position. And then don't base coat just one because you can wonky the pattern and then you'll be tracing a lot of things. Do 2 elements and then you'll be able to lay it out. And then the other hint that I have about base coating is, see how I'm starting with his faces. I was told in a class that if you put the face and the eyes on your projects that have faces and eyes, then you'll be more likely to finish them because they're staring at you and intimidating you and telling you, hey, finish me, I don't have legs or a body or a hat. And so do make sure that you go ahead and put your faces on first, and then you'll have a little guilty conscience spurring you on, just what we all needed, right? Alright, what I've done is I have blocked in all the colors. Now I told you to make their faces all finished first, but for purposes of design, I need to see how the colors are going to flow, and you guys always get this as I paint it. So right now I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not happy with how bright my faces are, but I have no trim or anything on all these guys right here. So I think that'll equal out in a little while. The next thing that I want to do is I want to highlight my red colors, and I think to do that I had originally gotten out Burgundy wine, but I don't think that that's going to show very well. I'm going to get out Country Red. If I can step over my pattern here. Okay, so we got our Country Red, shake it up, and we're going to use the stencil brushes. The Crescent stencil brushes, and this is a dry rub technique, and I have a couple of wet ones here. You cannot have these are my stencil brushes, and you can see that they're stained and stuff. That's fine, but they cannot be wet, and these have been sitting in water, so I need to recycle those over there and grab out a dry one or 2. It's better to have more than one of these, and in different sizes. Like I can use this big Mondo one in these big areas, but I need a skinny one for the arms and stuff. You also need a dry paper towel. Fold it into 4s. Okay, so I'm listening to Christmas music as I'm painting this so that I can get in the spirit because it's, you know, summertime. Okay, so what we're going to do, you see that that's a lot more orangey than that red is. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up on our dry brush some paint on the tip and then wipe it off completely on a paper towel. This is so easy, you can almost do it blindfold. Okay, and then in the highlight area, which is up the middle section, I'm just going to rub in a streak. Okay, need a little bit more. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get the paint into the brush, and I may not have enough contrast between the highlight color and the base coat, but that is showing up. Let's get in closer. Okay, so you can see, I can move my purse off the edge of the table. We can see that that is looking highlighted, and we'll probably have to go up one more step of highlight. Because it's so close, I don't need to spend as much time shading, as much time wiping off on my paper towel. And then you can go with a lot less wiped off to highlight within that highlight. Now we've got my belt on already. I was going to say don't put any of these details on, but since I did, I'll just run over it. I'm not going to worry about it. This highlighting is what is going to give your nutcrackers a little bit of shape. These are kind of shapeless little blocky guys, and it's also going to perk up this red. Alright, so then across his chest, rather than worrying about, I've got all kinds of other stuff that's going to be on here. I'm just going to kind of go in a little bit of a crisscrossy kind of direction. And give them a look of, you know, woven fabric, I guess, if it actually shows as a pattern. I don't think it will. Okay, and so as we get that brighter, and we will, and then maybe I'll do it like a little bit like a U kind of shape. Now, if that's wet, that will be a big mistake, so I want to be real careful. I'm going to go back down to this lower area. Maybe up here one more time. I think we're definitely going to need one more brighter color. I have to dig out what that looks like. Alright, because we have two the same, I'm not going to show the bodies, the things that are exactly the same. I'm not going to repeat myself. So the two end, let's look at our little guys here. Now we have drums that are in different positions on here, but the uniform is the same. So whatever you do to the uniform, you're going to do it the same, just depending on what shows. And the same on these two guys. So I'm going to move over and do this one, and then we will you're just going to treat them as the same, and I'll come back to you when I get to the second highlight. Oh, and so then what I'm going to do is, because I have this color in my brush, I can go dirty brush into the next highlight color, but because I don't want to get another brush out to get the highlight on, then I'm going to go and highlight this guy and then come back to the highlight. And then this is cold right now, which tells me that that paint is still wet. You never want to dry rub on a wet piece of paint. So by moving over here, that gives me time for this to dry. Then I can come back in with my highlight, and then I'll be good to go. Okay, and so we're dirty brush into the blush flush, and then right where you highlighted before, and that should perk it up just nicely, and that's doing a good job. You want to be a little bit more careful with this color. So get that highlighted. Sometimes it helps to stipple when you want color in a specific area. Got a lot of noise going on in the background. Sorry about that. We're packing for convention. All right. Repeat just in that area. Now, if you skipped from this color to this color, it would show up like chalk. Okay, so you've got to make sure you sneak up on the dry rubbing. And then we're also going to take Patty's favorite dry brush, and this is a size 4, and we're going to do a dry brush versus a dry rub on the red in the uniform details. Okay, so that will perk that up, and then it kind of almost self-shades when you do this. We're still going to shade, but it kind of does a little bit of self-shading, so you don't have to work so hard. And then we'll do just on top of that with a skinnier step of the blush flush. Okay, let's go in closer so you can see. So it's on the chisel edge of my brush, and just rub that right down there. And you notice that I don't go from the top to the bottom, and I don't go from side to side. I keep it up the middle of the detail. That way the dark base background color is what's showing. Alright, it's time for a helpful hint. I got these containers at IKEA. You can use any container that you wish. Okay, but what's happening, because my project is so darn big, I have paints off to this side and I have paints off to the other side. Whoops. Paints off to the other side. And every time I move this mat, I am knocking things over like bowling pins. So it is time for me to put all of my paints inside this bin. That way when I want to move them, I'm moving one thing only, and it will be much healthier for my project. And I'm not using, don't worry about counting all these, I'm not using all of these, but I've got them out for various reasons. Anyway, so now see, I've got all these, and I can set it on my piece. It's not going to hurt anything. You know, so that way I can slide this so you can see what I'm doing. How fun is that? Alright, so now, hey, I'm not knocking anything over. How fantastic. Alright, so that is our technique that you couldn't see me doing. Dry it off on the paper towel, and then just highlighting up the middle of each leg. Alright, so we've got another set of legs. Notice what that does for the legs. It just really gives them form. And then we're going to repeat with Hauser light green, I believe, as soon as they get dry. And on our different elements, we'll just kind of, I guess, attack them one by one. This is going to end up being a pretty long DVD because I want to show you all the details. I don't want you to struggle with anything. There's no sense having a DVD if you can't give yourself, you know, all of the tips and techniques that you could get in a classroom. That's what I think DVDs are good for, is a classroom type replacement. Not that there's ever a replacement, but you know what I mean. Okay, I'm going to finish the other guys and then we'll come back and highlight again. Right, so I can move Dirty Brush into this green that I had on my paintbrush and dry rub with the Hauser light green. Now this, I'm a little bit afraid is going to be a little bit bright, so I want to be just gentle. Yep, there it goes. Wipe off more. Just rubbing just a little bit more to expand right in between that highlight we already did. Okay, and then just do all the rest of them the same way. Alright, next I want to do a little bit of highlighting on this gray. We're going to use graphite. See how that looks. We're going to use the dry rub brush. And we'll try this on his arm and see if that's even going to show up. Yeah, I guess that shows. And then we'll go right down the middle of his chest. A little bit of that brighter color. Whoops, my paint had gotten skim on top of it. Okay, just keep reloading your brush as you need to. Now with this one, I'm going to get my paints all the way out here so I almost need another little table for this project. I'll show you the details on this and then we'll move around. Phew. My little extra hairs. If you get little hairs from the dry rubbing, just wipe them off. Alright, so this one we're going to want to do highlight straight up the middle of his hat and then increase the strength in the center. Okay, so we'll get that on there, and then we have to go down south to our boots. Being careful not to have my Floorcloth roll into my project. And on everybody's boots, I'm going to highlight just straight down the middle of the boots, staying off of the toe. The toe will get a little float. And don't forget the cuff, if the cuff stays black. And I think this cuff stays black, I'm not really certain. We can come back up here in the middle now that it's probably dry, and we can increase the strength of that. Okay, then we can go Dirty Brush, and we want to be careful, this color is going to scream at us. I'm going to even wipe it on one of my dark spots here to make sure, just really wipe that off. This is going to just a little hint of this. Little dab will do ya. Gentle pressure, feather light. You don't want this taken over. And then that gives that a nice highlight right in the middle. Okay, we'll do our hat the same way and our boots the same way. The nice thing about this, while, let's go wide, while you have, you know, a lot of things going on in this, most of this stuff, when you're into your reds, go ahead and you can watch the video and then skip forward to another red section or whatever. But for the most part, you can do all of your blacks at the same time, all of your greens at the same time, and it goes really fast. It's almost like factory work, you know, where you just do one after another after another. And if we're doing the same technique, then it becomes even easier. Do make sure, if you don't own any of these dry rubbing brushes, that you get a couple of them in the same sizes. They're real cheap, so you can afford to have several. Okay, and now on his hat, I'm going to want that to be just a little bit shinier, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more. And just for that center area, I'm going to just almost dry brush instead of dry rub. It's just really to bring that up to a middle place of shine, like it's made out of shiny material. Okay, and then I think we need to go one more, less wiped off. Within that, now it's getting shinier looking. His rim really gets to have a little bit of that too. One more, even less. And you can build that up to that nice lovely shine. And the boots are the same kind of technique. We want him to be a little bit shiny up the middle. Okay, we don't have as much room for this brush, but we definitely want to make sure that they have a little bit of like proud military shine. His uniform obviously would not get quite as bright. For the toes of his boots, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and float with the graphite. Lower the glasses. And a nice, smooth, even C-stroke. Okay. And then he's got a little bit of a boot, but we'll get that in a second as soon as this dries. Okay, as we make our notes about what we did, as we move on our toes here, what I'm going to do is go dirty brush float, which means just float with paint already in my paintbrush. And then right on the tips of the toes, I'm going to highlight just a little bit more. That involves me turning my brush just a little bit. And then the other thing, I'll go back into the graphite, and what I want to do is make a little bit of a sole to his shoe, just with a chisel on my floated brush, pulling in the graphite. And we'll do that on all of them. And then he'll have something to stand on, you know? I think that'll be better. Alright, while we have our grays out, let's go to our hat. And we're going to do a little float with our slate gray on the hat rim. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to come along here, sneak along to the front. Oops. Give it just a little bit of highlight on one side. And I'm picking on the left side. I don't know why, but we'll just go with it. Alright, we'll probably do some more with that later on and do a little bit of white float on there, but we'll see. We'll let this. One thing I like about doing this as the project develops is it's nice for you, I think, to be able to be along and make the decisions along with. And if you ever feel like you want to change colors or change whatever you need to change with these guys, feel free. I don't have any problems with people just making it their own. Okay, so here's what we've got. I traced my details on my light colored face with white graphite. Now you can't see the white graphite very well. I can see it barely, but what I'm going to do is go over here to my windowsill where I have not dusted so that I may preserve the dust for this purpose. And then we will rub the dust into my graphite. I can get, maybe I haven't preserved enough dust. Are we getting it? Yeah. Apparently I need to be dustier. And then that will pick up your graphite lines, you can see, and then they won't be hard to erase. So we want to save our dust wherever we can so that we don't have to do strong graphite lines. There we go. That's much better. You can see that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to base the things that we know what color they're going to be. So we know, for example, that we are going to have a slate gray beard and mustache. So we'll go into our slate gray, and we will put our glasses on so we can see what we're doing, and just base our gray mustache. And this is going to be fantastic because it'll mark our place. Get a little water. When you're doing it in small areas, use a little bit of water for the flow to work a little bit better for you. Not too much water, otherwise you'll end up base coating 3 times. We'll finish his mustache out with the liner brush instead of this round. Okay. I do want that mustache to join. Okay. I want him to be a dapper looking nutcracker. Alright, so we'll go into our beard, and that'll run smoothly along the bottom. It'd be nice to get the beards on these guys. Start making them look like nutcrackers, eh? Okay. And we'll just give them a couple of cuts. Oh, don't forget the eyebrows. Be real gentle up here. We don't want this eyebrow to take over everything. Okay, and see if I can see where it's coming out the other side here. It's got to have 2 eyebrows for sure. How silly. So we are going to shade our green areas with black green with a float. Okay, and we'll shade on side to side, either side of the leg and down the middle of the leg. Do all the same sides, and then we'll go back and do all the other sides. Okay, and the other thing that we're going to want to do is give our little cuffs here a little, oops, as I run my hand straight on through, give our little cuffs a break here, give them a little float. And we'll just go on along, and then when we get done, we'll come back and do the opposite sides of everything. So everything that's green, you're going to shade to each side. And actually this leg is big enough. Okay, and then in addition to shading on all of our sides of our legs, we're also going to shade underneath things that are on top of the legs. So like jackets and drums and things. Oh my, ooh, we've got a nice thunderstorm out there. So as soon as things are dry, never run through a float though. So if I floated down this way, then you would not want to float across it until that was dry. So you always want to make sure things are dry. Now in addition to shading on the tops, bottoms, and the sides, we're also going to shade where the boots get tucked. And that will make things look like they appear to go in. Just do all of those. Alright, so let's go into, I'm going to use this little 3/16 brush. We're going to go into our, what color is it called? Flesh. And we are going to put in the cheeks, and with a little bit of dry rubbing motion. You want to start in the center and then get bigger and bigger. Don't make them too harsh. So start in the middle. Bigger and bigger. Make them the same. That's that painted doll kind of look. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of mine. Right, so you want to make sure that you never float on dry rubbed areas while they're still like fresh. You want to give them just a few minutes to dry. I'm going to use Shading Flesh and blend it nice and soft on my brush. I don't want a harsh float. And we're going to shade around his face. Okay. Nice and round movements. Okay. underneath his cap. Nice and smooth. Okay, that gives him a little bit more definition on his face. Remember, don't run through your floats. No run-throughs. You don't want that on the cap, and we really don't want it on his eyebrows. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my float and I'm going to walk my float up his nose. There you go. That gives him his little bit of nose. Alright, so I don't want his teeth to look too ferocious. So I just got a little wash of paint in my brush, and I'm just washing it down. Alright, so we're going to take the same light mocha color. Sometimes your white doesn't need to be so white, you know what I'm saying? You can have a, because we have such high contrast on this puppy, our white can be a mocha color. Okay, and we'll just make the whites of his eyes be the mocha. Work carefully. Don't stress too much with the eyes, that's why we have a tracing. Oh, now he's getting eyes. Look at him. If his whites don't seem quite white enough, give him one more coat. His teeth seem to need brightening. You can give them one more coat as well. You know, I think we might even go in and do something highlighty, give him a little bit of bleaching moment with his teeth and just a little bit. We'll see how we get going here. Okay, I say my Nutcracker has to have blue eyes, like my dad's eyes. I've got brown eyes, so I always admire the blue. So we'll base them with, what is this color? Sorry about that. Salem blue. And we'll shade the blues with something else. And then we'll get into a little bit of graphite. And that will be our blacks, the pupils. Okay, now we have blue-eyed little Nutcracker. Okay. Now I'm going to use my Quill Liner because I want a really fine line. And then getting into graphite with water. And we need to line the top of his eye. Okay. Give him just a little bit of definition at the top. Alright, so we're going to line right across his mouth with a little bit of this thinned graphite. And then I think what I want to do, we don't want to make his teeth look like he needs braces or has braces or something like that. So I think what we'll do is we'll just highlight individual teeth. There we go. Yeah, not too much, not too little. Alright, now we are going to go attack his hair. He needs to have some pretty nice looking hair. So what we're going to do is we're going to shade the hair with graphite into some nice little locks alongside his head. So going out to the edge there. Same thing on his beard. Whoops, make sure you can see. And give him some curls. And we'll wait till that dries to come around and do the other side. Shade his mustache where it meets. Okay. Shade the other side of his head. Okay, get him nice and dark. We can't highlight and have anything show if we're like light on light, so gotta have the shadows showing. If you need to come back and do a little bit more when it's all dry, okay, I think this is dry enough. We'll come over here. Okay, get him all nice and good. Shade the other side of his head. Okay, there we go. Do the same to everybody. Okay, when you're doing your shading, don't forget your eyebrows with graphite. I realized that when I moved beyond. Just give him a little bit of a darkening. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we're going to give him some hair with some thinned graphite using our Raphael liner because it has such a good fine point. Let's see how close I can get you in here. Oops, and this way. Alright, what we want to do is we're going to create some lines in our hair indicating how our hair is growing. You don't want to base it, so be careful about that. He's got this curly little beard going on. Mustache, obviously. You can make whatever kind of hair you want to have on your Nutcracker. Do not feel like I am telling you one way or the other. Okay. There are such friendly and fun Nutcrackers, and then there's scary ones, and now I'm going into whatever gray this is. Let's see, it's Dove Gray. And I think that looks a little too runny. I always kind of take a look at your brush before you put it down. You're going to do the same thing with the Dove Gray. Give ourselves some lines to do with our hair. Okay. Going to decide which way it's growing. Don't make it too messy. If you go in both directions, it's going to look a little bit messy. Okay, our eyebrows get to be... Now I had picked that these guys were going to be more of white-haired Nutcrackers, so I am setting the page or the stage for this to be. You also got to get a graceful line. You got to get a good angle. I am bent over sideways so I can keep straight on the camera. This is not the healthiest kind of way to line. Thankfully my Nutcracker doesn't seem to be minding. Okay, you can have that go outside the line if you want to. Get a little bit full out there. So you get a hairier look. Alrighty, and I think we'll go into the light mocha and thin it with our water. And that's some thick paint, wow. Don't want it too thinned because then it won't show up against that gray. Okay, and so then we can get, nope, not going to be white enough. That contrast is just, remember earlier we were talking about using a white color or a color that's kind of white, and that was just kind of white. So we're going to get out our white. What a difference. Let me show you the difference in these colors. Let's see, okay. There is our titanium white, or warm white, sorry, and that's our light mocha. So you can see that there is definitely a little bit of a difference there. So I'm going to thin it down with some water. Always pinch off whatever you can't use on your brush. Pinch it off so that you have, what am I trying to say? So you have control over your liner brush. Okay. And now this is going to be our top low curls. Okay. If you want them to have, you know, locks that are a little bit unruly, you could. A lot of these Nutcrackers are quite unruly looking. Oops, keep your fingers out of it. Okay, so we have some of these little curls. On top. stand up, lean over, and get to it here. Alrighty, I think for right now, what we've got to do next is bring out his little curly mustache. And I think what we'll do is we'll mix just a little bit of our dark gray and our light gray just to make that medium gray. And bring that out. Okay, and that gives him, you can highlight that and bring out just a couple of little swooshes with the lighter colors if you want to. Okay, I like his little face. While we're in there, let's take our small flat brush, which mine is a little out of control, but we're going to try it anyway. Take our small flat brush and Ultra Blue Deep. And Ultra Blue Deep is what we're going to do a microscopic little shadow on his eye with. You know, I think I'm going to do better with my great big flat brush because it's in better condition than my little flat brush. We want a very dry float, and we want it to go. I need to get closer because I am blind. Okay, and you'll just float on either side of his eyes to give him a more blue look. Okay, and I have to wait till that dries and I'll do the other side. Maybe I don't have to wait till that dries. Yeah, that's better. And then you always, always, always have to give a white of the eye. And that is going to be on the two same sides. Okay, and then that's the sparkle, that's the life in him. I think we'll take that little flat brush and I think we need to get just one more detail on his nose. I think his nose is not strong enough for the colors on his face, and so I'm going to float down one side of his nose to strengthen it. Yeah, like that. Okay. Okay, so what I have done here is I have sketched on with my yellow monster marking tool my S strokes. Now an S stroke looks like an S, and they overlap each other, and they always have the same angle. If you can't do an S stroke, you could make a series of hash marks that go the same direction. That's going to make us look like we have links, so like we have metal going on here. Okay, I'm going to get a nice brush, and we're going to start with burped out. Gotta have a little bit of water in it, not very thin, just enough to make lines. Okay, and we've got to have our angle correct. Okay, that's still not enough paint. Gotta use the line of our brush. Done talking to you apparently, aren't I? Sorry about that. I'm intent on my job here. Okay, so then we will fill in, and this is totally the wrong brush. We'll base in all of our brass or metal elements. Okay, and we will go down here to his little shirt as well, and we will, I think on this one, I think we're going to go ahead and just give him kind of an undercoat dry brush. Okay, and then I think we will use the top coat as a highlight on top of that, because this is braid, this isn't a chain, so that's the difference. Okay, so get that faced in. Okay, it's imperative, 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 and I totally lost you. that you keep the direction right, and I see that I'm going down a hill. So see what I've done is I've moved my piece. Here, let's get you on there. I've moved my piece, and now I'm totally wonking out because I'm not in a good angle. This is one of the problems with doing a floor cloth. So I have put a little water on my eraser, and I fresh watered erased that line. And now I'll put it back in, but I'll put it back in straight. A little bit of a curve instead of downhill. All right, excellent. Okay, now I'm going to go into my second color on my metal. A little too watery, not quite strong enough. Don't want this to quite just touch exactly where the last one went. Just kind of right on the piggyback of it. Then I'm going to dirty brush into Marigold. Go back to the front of the line. And this is going to get highlighted right in the middle. I'm not going to do it as much. Okay, it would help if you could see. Going here, just like little strong joiner highlight kind of things. All right, we'll probably go one stronger in the middle with something, and then we need to shade, and then that gets flipped back around. Whose idea was this great big floor cloth? Actually, I love painting on floor cloths. I just wish that I had a bigger table. So if you do this, when you're doing this, get a big table. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shade with soft black on one side or the other. Okay. And while we're at it, on our epaulettes, and these are all treated the same, so I won't be repeating this instruction, we'll go ahead and shade and walk down. Okay. There we go. That just gives us a foundation. And then on our hat, we're going to shade and walk in on our hat. That'll give us the illusion of his head bending a little bit. He's just getting to be so smart looking. I think let's go ahead and give his little rope over here a shadow on either side, and we'll do just the hairiest hair of floats on his brass buttons. Do both sides. Okay, now on the upper hat area, let's go ahead. Well, let's work on his braid on his chest because I can't do that until it dries, and it's just not drying very fast right now. We'll go into the honey brown. I think rather than doing microscopic S-strokes, I think I'm just going to do the hash marks. I think that's going to be easier on everybody concerned. Just make sure they're going in the same direction and don't go up or downhill. It sounds like we've got a war going on outside. Okay, I'm liking that. And now we'll go into marigold. And we will do the middle section of these. I was just sitting here wondering if it mattered if we did the honey brown. I think I'll try the next ones without doing the honey brown, since I seem to be covering up all of my marigold. Or let's try not covering it all up. Okay. Now that we've said that, we'll go up to the hat. And we need a lighter gold, which may just be enough to go into white plus marigold. And then this needs to be in the middle area. Okay, so for all these pendants at the top, we need to do 2 floats, one of honey brown. This one I'm sure of, although the little ones we're going to have a different story to tell. And do 1 to each side. And then for the little ones, we have to do, I think we'll just skip straight to a microscopic, you gotta have a really dry float if you're gonna, my brush was way too wet. Really, 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 really dry float to do this. Get your glasses, get your bifocals, all those things going. And okay. Right, and then the way that you make these look a little bit more bejeweled-y looking is you take your liner brush with your white, and then in the dark side, is that true? Maybe you're wrong. In the light side, and then a little dot in the dark side. Okay. And we'll do a second float up there of the lighter. That's not dry yet. So, since we're waiting on that, we'll take our dry brush if I can find it. We'll take our dry brush and we will go into honey brown with just pushing some paint on our brush and then drag across the band. And then pick up some marigold and repeat. And that gives us a nice brassy looking yellow band. And then into a little bit of marigold plus white. Okay, so let's talk about his braid right here. I want the braids to fling out to each side just a little bit, so I have to add a milk chocolate braid to loosen that up. And then I think I need to add some thin, soft black. Lines to be the in-between lines of the braid. Okay. Now I gotta turn everything sideways because we can't, because we're doing those little angled C-strokes, we have to do them up versus, anyway, you know what I mean. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go into our honey brown and we give ourselves, oops, too much water. Lots of little braid things. Am I on the right shoulder? No, I'm not on the right shoulder. If you roll your floor cloth and your palette's right in front of it, please be careful not to get paint all over you guys. Okay. Just all the way up. These are more like little angled dashes. Getting a little bit in a hurry just then. Okay, now the yellow in this case, I think we're going to leave the yellow to this middle section, almost like it's been highlighted. So it'll be brighter on the top. Okay. And I don't know that I'm bright enough yet, so. Okay, we'll leave the last two rows undone, and then we'll mix into that white plus yellow for this middle area. Kind of keep them straight. These shouldn't be frayed braids. Frayed braids, how about that? Keep it out of that really shadowed area. Okay, and then that should give a little golden roundness to that. On that note, as I go to his stuff in the middle here, I'm going to go back into that white with the yellow and do the middle section of his belly. Okay, liking that, we need to do a little bit more to his hat, just with my liner brush in that yellow color. And then maybe we need a little bit more white. There, good deal. Alright, so our belt buckle gets to be the same kind of thing. It gets lined first with our milk chocolate. The details are just fantastic on this piece. I love, 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 love it. Alright, and so that's a repeat of that. Now we're going to do the same kind of trim on his arm band here. We need a button. It's got buttons everywhere. Oh, and you know what I didn't do is highlight that green. Shame, 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 I know my name. So what we need to do is get out one of our little dry rubbing brushes. And we get out our green paint, which I don't think can I burp them? You ever do that? You try to dig into dried old nasty scounchy paint? Alright. So we've got to highlight, because we had shaded that, but we never did. So we get our little avocado going on there. And because I just put that on there, I'm just going to go ahead and do it right over that button. And then rebase my button. And then we burp into a little bit of our really light green. And you know what, now that I've done that, I want to increase the highlight on my pants. As you go through, you'll find yourself doing that. You'll go, oh, well now that I did that, I like this a little bit brighter. It's just real easy to go and give everybody a little boost in the highlights. Oops, we got this other green guy. Don't forget, you've got two guys with two sleeves. Get them both at the same time so it's much faster. Okay. Really wish I knew what color I was going to be doing this drum here, but I'll figure it out. Haven't gotten to that part yet. One thing at a time, huh? Oh, you know what? While we have this here, let's shade our epaulettes. The blue on them with that ultra marine blue, ultra blue deep. I have to look at the bottle, ultra blue deep. So let's shade to either side of those with ultra blue deep. I'm losing everything off this table. And then we'll highlight the middle of them. Yeah, like that. And you couldn't see any of that. Let's do it again. Good thing I have more than one. Okay, so let's shade the blue on the epaulettes with the ultra blue deep. They're all the same. We will dry brush into my palette. Is a disaster. Into our burped out Salem blue. And then the epaulettes get, we flick on a paper towel, and then they get highlighted just right across there. Okay. Should look dry and scratchy, not liney. As I'm going through, I realized that we didn't highlight our black bands either. And so first we're going to do the same steps as we did before using graphite. And I think we'll go ahead and highlight the belts as well. Now this one's got my red run through it, so maybe we'll wait on that one. I'm going to rebase these hands a different color. They are just too bright. Then pick up a little bit of that slate gray, and that's what's really going to show there. It just adds all the difference in the world. Really makes a big difference, I think. Okay, on our belt, we would highlight in these middle areas and through the belty belt there. And then we could go up one more with the dove gray. If we wanted to increase the highlight just a little bit more. Okay. And anything else I've forgotten? This is craziness. Well, not yet, but I'm sure I'll find something. Okay, we are going to shade the red jackets. The other thing I forgot. I knew I'd figure it out. It's okay that the red is dark and everything, but it's not dark enough. Okay, so we're going to shade that with soft black. And got to do that before we can do anything else. We didn't have to shade the black jackets because they were black. Not really much more we're going to be able to do to shade those. We just have to highlight those enough. And follow our line. So that's going to give us a nice separation of elements. Do all of one side and then go back and do the other. Stay out of your highlight. Okay. And maybe we shade under his neck a little bit. His beard, of course. Do we have some more red stuff? Not really, but while I've got this color on my brush, I can shade it at the top of his epaulettes, which is what I did on the other one. So I'm a little bit dry, so I'm just stroking across that. Perk your brush up with a little water and it'd be much easier to float, huh? Okay, so just do and then repeat. Side we can do now. This will just flip right down. Yeah, see how much difference that makes? All the difference in the world. And actually you can shade underneath the epaulette too, because that is hanging over. Now that I did that, I can't do the other. You can shade under his belt. It's going to be a skinnier shade because it's not dragging in as much. Okay, so we're going to shade to one side with our soft black. You can shade to one side of your braid as well. That's going to go around the corner, walk it in, shade your band. These are these two different hats. I'll show you both of them once. Okay, and then let's see, what are we going to do here? We've got to shade to separate. So as soon as that dries, we'll bring that in. Okay, that's a cruddy looking float. Let's fix it. We shaded the epaulettes. We also have this little skirt thing down here that we've got going on, and so we're going to shade either side of that. Finally figured out what color. It's in new directions. And everything gold is going to get shaded to sync it with this soft black. All of these little trim things will get these, oops, shaded. If we don't have any, and then we need to make some of our little fringy shadow stuff. It can be really irregular. And we can do the same thing here on his. As things disappear on the corner, we want them to shade. Alrighty, so on his boots, same kind of thing. Mural. Shade where it goes out of the lines. These guys are just making me so happy. They're so cute. While I'm shading everything with my soft black, we're going to go ahead and show you that on the drums, on both drums, you're going to shade this band as it comes around. That's going to give it, and you're going to walk it up a little bit. That's going to give it the effect of bending forward. And then we have to also shade in here on this band. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing. Whoops, I am in danger zone here. We've got this other instrument set over here. Ding, 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 kind of a cymbal-y type bell. We're We're going to C-stroke down one side and C-stroke up the other. Make sure I'm not running through everything. And we need to line across it. And then you shade all of his stuff as well. I'm seeing that I forgot some stuff. I may not have gotten over there yet. There's a lot of things to shade. It's easy to do. This is actually an easy project. It's just a lot of the same thing, and you've got to remember to see what you're doing, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, and so then I'm going to do the top part of this. That's dry. Okay, we also have to shade these little edges right here. Okay, so then we will take our honey brown, which I think mine's all dried up. Okay, and we need to give these same kind of treatment to his hat as the other guy's hat. I do want to show it once so that you don't feel lost. These little fleur-de-lis are going to float up either side and up the middle here. On our braid, we got to do all that with a different kind of brush. We can take our chisel of this flat and just kind of chisel in some highlight area. Repeat it stronger in the middle. And then you can go into marigold, which mine is drying up. Okay, we're going to go into, let's get back down here, into our dry brush of honey brown. That's dry brush, not dry rub. And let's tickle in a little bit more gold fill here. Okay. Same thing on our hat. I'm going to go across. We want to leave some of the milk chocolate showing, some of the soft black showing, and it just all graduates in. You can repeat honey brown until you get kind of a good base. Then into the marigold. And we want to marigold the other areas as well. Okay. And then marigold plus our warm white, which we're out of. Everything's been drying. This weather is hot, but we've had all these storms today. Okay, so marigold plus the white. Stronger. Okay, there we go. That's got a nice metallic look to it. And I think we could even marigold dry brush here at the top when we did this to walk it over. And then plus white. Alright, now we do our trim, which is the same thing that we did on the other guy. So the braid is the same, the epaulettes is the same, but let's do our little instruments here are going to be the honey brown. And I'm going to dry brush these because they're small, which means that it'll be easier to do the dry brush rather than a dry rub. Okay, and then we'll go into our marigold color. And do the trim just a little bit more. Marigold plus white. Yeah, I like it. Okay, and our little fleur-de-lis right down here will be marigold. Dry brush backwards. Okay, then marigold. We want to treat the this little skirt braid the same kind of way. So you notice a little trend here. It's honey brown, then marigold, okay. Now let's talk about these underskirts here. Got to get into a little bit of. Let's go into a little bit of dry rub white. And then just give that a little rub. We'll give it some shading in just a minute as well. And then their hands need to be dry rubbed white. All of their hands get the same. And if we were to go over to our drum, the center of both drums, on the drum skin, both get a little dry rub with white. A little bit, not a lot. I don't want them to take that cover. I did rebase my hands with that mix that's in your directions, so ignore what I said and do what I wrote. Both skirts get the same treatment. Okay, that looks good, and I think we'll go ahead and do our shading on that right now, on those skirts and on the drum skins, because we can, and our hands. Let's try milk chocolate. This might be too golden in color. Yeah, you know what, I'm not sure I'm gonna like that. Yeah, it's okay. On the hands, I like it. So we'll do a C-stroke to both sides of the hands. And then let's try it on the drum. Okay. Like that, we'll have to reverse and go the other direction as soon as we can. Make sure your float gets all the way to the edge of that white, otherwise it's not going to work very well. Okay, so at this skirt area, this undercoat area, we'll shade up both sides of that with the same brown. Go back and do all of our hands. Let's go show you what I'm doing. Go back and do all the hands on the other side. Got to keep it wet enough to float, though. You don't want, you know, somebody who's wearing gloves, playing a drum in this sharp uniform to have scraggly looking gloves. You know, just like in the olden days when women used to, you know, make sure they had their Sunday best white gloves. That's what these guys would be like too. Okay, and this side of the drum as well. Okay, nice. Nice. Okay, and don't forget on our drum that we were shading that with our soft black. And we're drawing that in. And we're also going to go ahead and shade right next to the bottom of the edge with the soft black. next to the top edge. Skinnier. You don't want this as fat as the edges. Alright, for our belt buckle, I've got a dry brush loaded in honey brown, and then we load into the marigold. Oof. And then we create that brass buckle. And so we can do all of them. Oops, I'm going to go into honey brown first. And into marigold. When you're developing the high places on his arm, you want to just do right in the middle of the braid. Same thing goes for him. He's got the same trim here, same trim down here. We've got to base these buttons, which are, you know, obviously something that you've already done, is basing buttons, but these guys with the jackets have got brass buttons. And they've actually got, I believe, a drawn cord underneath the braid. Okay, and let's talk just a moment. This is like in the finishing here of stuff. Let's use our round and our honey brown. And let's do one side and the other. Oopsie. With our honey brown on our buttons. And all of our shirt buttons get that same treatment. Just one side and the other. This isn't really a float, it's more like a dry brush. Okay, but all of our buttons, oh, and you know what we're missing? Some buttons on his sleeve. We had them there earlier, but we didn't go back to them. Okay, most of the sleeves get these buttons. Okay, and then on our, after we shaded this, oh, that's our same base coat. Let's go into the highlight color. Okay. We'll come back to these, into a little bit of marigold, using the chisel or flattened round. Woo! Okay, if that happens, you blot it with your finger. Give this a little highlight. Ta-da! Pretty sharp. He's a well-dressed dude. Okay, I'm looking to see where we have to do our drum and things like that, but I'm trying to finish all this trim. This trim is just, it's not really a killer, but it is just kind of a monster because you just don't see everything at one time. You go back and you go, oh, I missed that. A lot of places to trim. So when you dry rub, you have to put the coat on before. Okay, otherwise you are missing the boat and it will look very chalky and your whole painting will be diminished. Then I'm going blush flush. So country red, then blush flush. I'm going to do the same thing on this bad boy way down here. I'm knocking everything over. God bless the Floorcloth. Okay, the along. Maybe even repeat, because it doesn't seem like there's enough yet, because it's a big area. And then go into the blush flush. Scratchy, scratchy. Ta-da! Yay, like that better. Okay, so we're doing to the black area just what we did to the belt and the hat and all that kind of stuff. We're just dry rubbing with the graphite and then the gray sky. So same exact thing. Don't take it all the way down to the edges because we want to be able to see those edges. And we are just getting down to the end and the nitty gritty here. So we need to shade. Actually, I think we need to highlight first. Let's highlight our blue color with our Salem blue. Okay, get some of that out there. The palette, I've gone to dinner, and so now everything's dry. Okay, so what we want to do, I think, is go ahead and highlight to the front edge. Kind of to the front middle, and then pick up a little bit of our white and highlight that on top. There we go. And then we'll shade, although we have to wait to shade that, so I'll go ahead and highlight my other one before I shade that. So we have our drum, and the drum is going to be treated exactly the same way as we did all of our other details. We are going to start with, because it's all gold, right, all this gold stuff gets treated the same. So we do our honey brown, and then just these V's. Now where it's the darker shadow area, over here, we're going to treat that like with less highlight, just like everything else that we've done. Okay, and do that. Then we go into our honey brown, and give it a little bit of a metal treatment, like there's springs. Then we go down, 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 down. Okay, then we're going to go into our marigold. Same kind of thing. Center area first. Center area first. Okay. Leave that branch over there. Okay. Maybe a little bit of white plus our marigold in the center area. That's 3 centers. I don't quite have 3 centers, but that's okay. Now we have to deal with this band over here. I think it's our honey brown, so let's dry brush just like the hat band, exactly like the hat band. Let's dry brush it, get some streaky scratchy going on. Then we go into our marigold. Right in the middle. Get a nice bend of that, that's a good deal. And then maybe marigold plus a little white. Okay, I like it. Okay, you can do a little bit with this back band if you want to. Not so necessary, but you can. You feel like that needs to be given attention to. Love it. Alright, so to finish off this blue trim, I'm going to float with Ultra Glow Deep. Should make this look quite regal. Nice. Alright, I like it. If you need to beef up those shoulder pads, you can do that too. My son Chris says that they get a little lost in the blue, but I think I'm going to leave them. All right. So we have our drumsticks, and they are both going to get highlighted with white. They are based in the desert sand plus milk chocolate mix. And then we highlight them with the white to make them stand out. Ta-da! Oops, don't run your palette through it. It's a little late in the game to be starting to run our palette through things. Just a little dry brush, dirty brush white. Straight on down. Awesome. We go to our horn. The horn is the same as the other horn, which I'm going to show you at the same time. We've got the horn is based with the milk chocolate, and then we go into honey brown. I hope you're recognizing a pattern here. So we use a chisel of our dry brush with the honey brown. And then chisel, chisel, chisel. And down here we do a little spread kind of thing, not taking it all the way to the edge. We'll shade this as well. We go into some marigold. Marigold is skinnier. Come down there. We'll highlight up the middle. And then plus white, really up the middle. Okay, we can even bring that down a little bit more into that. Good. Okay, so we come down here, and I think with this one right here, I think we'll go ahead and do some shading first. We'll shade with our soft black. So we'll shade up either side. Shade in front of where that pipe makes its little bend. Okay, down one side. And you know, as I say this, I have neglected to do that to my little trumpet up here. So I'm going to shade on two sides of the big part of the trumpet. Okay, so we're going to shade where that pipe intersects. Same kind of thing. Where this one crosses over that one. And give it a little shadow. That's how you know. Yeah, you betcha. Okay. As soon as that dries, then you give it the other side. Now this only had one coat of the milk chocolate on it, but I bet you money that we're going to be just fine with that. Because by the time you dry brush, everything kind of looks scratchy anyway. Now what we can do is we can go, while we're waiting for the big shading areas to be dry, we can go chisel edge with honey brown. With our brush, which acts almost like a liner brush. Ooh, a little bit strong, although with brass, I think that you can be a little bit strong, right? Gotta keep those lines a little bit kind of straight. This is almost not so dry brush as liney brush. Go into marigold. So we're going to take our horn and we're going to give it the dry brush with the honey brown. Okay, I had let my brush get a little bit dry. Bend it that way instead. So instead of going up and down, we'll go side to side. Layering as needed. Okay, then we go into the marigold. Things start getting sharper. Okay. And you start looking for the balance. Balance is where you start going, yeah, I like that, I don't like that, that kind of thing. Now we are into the white plus the marigold. Gets a little shinier. I think we'll call that. I think we could probably do a little bit of rimming with this, and that means, you know, going ahead and just putting a little bit of water and giving it just that chisel coming around the edge. Just shows where the rim is. Alright, we're going to take our compass and we are going to make a line on our piece that goes out to my sketch line, which I will tell you what that is in the directions. We're going to make a pinstripe. Oops. Really an easy way of making a super straight line. Then we're going to widen it just a little bit more so you can make that band. Make sure to keep your compass straight up and down so that you don't skew the line. Oops, and you got to keep it on your edge. Floor cloths are a little bit trickier because there is no edge on them. Be nice if you could have seen any of that. Okay, so we'll take our compass and we'll mark it out to the edge, and we want to keep it straight up and down. Floor cloths are a little tricky because we don't have this big edge right here, so I'm going to make sure that that foot stays along that edge. Then we're going to tape using our Scotch brand of magic tape, or Scotch Magic, how's that go? Anyway, Scotch tape, trademarked. And first we need to make this a color down here. I'm thinking it's going to be green. I hope I'm right. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and measure just to make sure. And that is exactly 2.5 inches. And I thought so. I thought I was maybe going downhill just a little bit down here. If you lean that compass at all, you're toast. Okay, and I'll continue and I'll take the other side. I'm going to base that green. So once I get based around all my elements with the black green, then I'll switch to a sponge, which will do a much faster job than this. And so I'll just tap it in my black green and then tap that along. And it covers it nice and evenly without doing a whole lot of stroke, 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 stroke. Okay, so I have my messy taped line. We're going to dig into a little bit of the milk chocolate, and we'll tap that line in. And I'm going to need more paint. Yep, I'm going to need more paint. Alright, we're going to treat these lines, these braid lines at the bottom and the top, the same as the ones on the uniform. So we're just going to do cross-hatching lines with even spaces. Not quite in the lines, not quite out of the lines. Try to keep the angle the same. I'll make it into braid. So we'll go there with our honey brown. Then we'll go in with our marigold. Okay, when we get our what color is it? When we get the marigold, mix it with some water, and then not quite cover up all the same spots. I need a little bit more marigold. Okay, just kind of get it in there. Yeah, the goal or the desire is to kind of feel like you want to hit the same exact spot, but that's not necessary. Kind of almost the faster you go, the better off you are. Okay, now we're going to Marigold Plus Warm White. Lots of warm white there. Okay, and we'll do the same thing in here. We'll keep it more towards this middle area and not let it splay out all the way to the edges. So we won't take it all the way to both sides. And I think that'll keep our center of interest in the center. Okay, we're going to use our little round brush and some honey brown and our glasses. And I like to start in the middle to establish the angle and then keep the angle all the way till the end. You notice I'm not lining this up and worrying about it, if you could see my hand. Notice I'm not lining this up and being worried about it. This is a kind of a casual braid, and almost a little bit outside of the lines is better than being totally inside the lines. That loosens things up just a little bit. You know, so I think, you know, if you can get yourself to do that, I think you'll be much happier with your results. And don't forget, we're doing, you know, 2 or 3 layers of this stuff, so I'll skip forward until I get my last 2 sections because they're just repeats. Okay, now I'm going to go into the marigold step. The marigold is thinned with water, as was the honey brown. Now remember, we're just trying to keep the angle. We're not trying to worry about the overlap. So I'm just going to speed up a little bit because I don't want to be so overlappy. And I think we'll keep this more towards the high centers. No, I think we have to bring it all the way to the edge. Yeah. And actually, now that I'm doing this, I think I'm going to work this section before I do anything else, because this is big. And here's the deal with details, right? When you are in a large surface, people say that they hate to paint big. Oh no, they hate to paint small, but really small is quite forgiving. Big, sometimes you have to pay really close attention to the details because people can see really well. Okay, so now I'm going to do this next layer. I want to make sure that this is going to look as good as it did on the little soldier guys. Sometimes you just have to carry it through to the end, just with white only. Okay, now I have to take a look. Alright, I think we can go with that. I think we're going to make sure that we have a good fade over to the sides, to each side. You don't want it to be abrupt. Okay, we might have to even go one brighter in the middle. Okay. Alright, see how close all of these lines are. Notice that A, they're messy. B, how close they are, all just jumbly overlapped. Okay, repeat that on all the other humps, keeping it less bright to the sides. Alright, so I'll show you this other side. what I may do is shade down the parts where they meet with a little bit of color. Now this I'm going to go up to just a little bit of the white, but it should be less bright. Do you see how that's shiny and that's not so shiny? So let's go ahead and let's line first. Let's get into our black green with some thinned, with our liner brush. Let's get into our black green with our liner brush and have it be thinned paint. And let's put in those stems first. Thinnish, thickish. You don't have to get too particular. We just want to make the eye go over the eye where we want it to. Give them the center. Okay. Now that we've done that, we go into our little float, which is very dry, and we will just highlight the tips of things. Not too harsh. You know, you don't want to make like a white on black kind of contrast. Keep, oops, I'm going to actually blend that brush, I think, huh? Keep the highlights away from the bases of things. So don't highlight down towards the bottom, just highlight towards the tips. Because after all, they would be highlighted at the tip. If they were all clustered in like that, they wouldn't be highlighted into the base. A little bit less down here because it's underneath the arrangement. Try to chisel it into those, the shape of this leaf so that you don't have people guessing as to what kind of leaf you've got going on there. Okay, and then when we go to the dark ones, we use the Hauser medium, that was Hauser light. I'll do the same kind of effect. I'm not going to put the stem line in that because I don't think you're going to see it. I'm a big fan of not working too hard, which sounds lazy, but if you're not going to see it anyway, why do it? Okay. And then let's go ahead with the other color, and you can do some of the other sides of some of those that still need it. Remembering that you can't cut through a wet float. Now we'll go into our red highlight colors. Pardon me. Which is going to be our blush flush. And we're going to shade with soft black. So let's shade first. And then we're going to have shadows where things are folded over. And then we know we're going to have them where they meet. And maybe even coming out of our bow. Underneath where the ribbon comes forward. Okay, we'll let that dry. Now I have my lines still on here, and you notice that I don't have this lovely project of mine. My horn isn't connected to the horn. That's not funny. Okay, we gotta make sure that connects. That's why you always make sure you erase your lines before you go very far, so that you can see what needs to still be connected or not. Because the white line actually manages to complete the thought for you, and we really don't want there to be no line when you get done. Okay, make sure you're erasing everything as you go, any messy hoo-ha lines, because once you varnish, they're varnished in. You know, you can't make them disappear. All right, and then one of the really tiny. Boy, my workstation is a mess. Okay, a really tiny brush and a dry paper towel. flush, flush. Okay, just a nice way to get our highlight on there. Staying out of my way areas. Okay. So we have our red and we have our greens down there. I think that that's probably going to work. I'm thinking we may just be done. Now what I've noticed with this multi-purpose canvas is that even though I've painted on top of it and I've given things a couple coats, it's got a little bit of a curl to it. And my experience with this is that it needs to be finished on both sides. So once I roll the back side of this with whatever color I decide, you know, black or whatever, then it should lay pretty flat. And once I put the varnish on, the heavier this gets with the coats of things, the better it is. Okay, let's take a look at our overall effect. All right. There's our, oh, you know what? I'm a liar. Okay, here we go. We have one more thing we have to do. It's always one more thing, right? Okay, so let's go telephoto in. Oh, I forgot their plumes. Our soldier guys have got to have plumes, right? Alright, so we know, I bet you can guess what colors these are going to be in, huh? Alright, they're going to be in our brown sequence. We're going to go first with our milk chocolate, and then just do a nice layer underneath all of those. We're going to pull towards us, don't pull away from us. So we'll get into our milk chocolate, lining towards us, nice loose, got to have thin lines for this. No thick lines for plumes. It's going to look feathery. Higher in the middle, naturally arching. Okay. Okay, next color is going to be the honey brown, and it's not going to be as tall or as far out as the milk chocolate was. Then into marigold, thinned, always thinned when you're using your liner, rarely not thinned. Less even than the last one was, than the honey brown. Okay. Alright, and after looking at the overall picture, I'm stepping back and taking a look. I think that those plumes are bright enough, so I'm not going to do another layer. Thank you so much for joining me for this wonderful project. I'm so excited to have it done. I'm so excited to get it varnished and put it into my Christmas collection. This is dedicated to my son, Christopher, who adores nutcrackers.